Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto.
Welcome to episode 1519 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome. Join me August 4th at Christie Pitts. I'll be recording live at 2 p.m. I'm also throwing out the first pitch. No foolin'. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut, is a hairstylist to the stars who once shared a bottle of scotch with Ed McMahon in the back of a limousine. It's Gary Chowen. Welcome, Gary.
Hey, Mike. How you doing? Happy to be here today.
Gary, my job is to sit back and extract stories. I can't imagine how many stories. I bet you we could record a 4, 5, 6 hour episode and leave some good stories on the cutting room floor.
We could do an LP or a book. Yeah, I'm sure. With leftover.
Yeah, now a mini-series. Why are we thinking one episode? This should be like a 10-episode arc or something in the Toronto Mic archives. But my friend, you are a Gary. I am well aware they're not making any new Garys. I just want to tell you, you're the fourth Gary to come on the show. Gare Joyce is a Gary. Gary Cormier and Gary Top, the two Garys. You're the fourth. What happened to all the Garys? Where are the young Garys?
Yeah, it's one of those names that have gone by the wayside. What's funny, Mike, is that when I used to get credits on Sunny and Cher show, a friend of mine said, put 2 R's in your name. It takes up more space on the screen.
Oh,
so
Gary Shanley did that, right? Didn't Gary Shanley put 2 R's in his name?
Yeah, he did, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
see?
So it took up more, even though it's 1 R, but on television, I always used to use 2 R's.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so you dropped Sunny and Cher. We're going to get to Sunny and Cher very early in this episode. I will shout out former Raptor, and I say this even though he's a free agent. He could theoretically sign and still be a Raptor, but I don't think he's going to be a Raptor. But former Raptor Gary Trent Jr. is only 25 years old. I think he might be the world's youngest Gary.
25. I have phone messages older than that I haven't returned yet. Good God.
Yeah, I was going to do one of my Ed McMahons now that I know. We're going to get to the Ed McMahon story. There's so many stories we're going to get to. You're going to have to promise something to me, Gary, though. I want you to drop name after name after name. I want you to drop these names like they're hot. Don't hold on to any names. Just drop them all.
Okay, I'll pick them up when we finish.
No, leave them there.
Okay.
I want them to be there when we're going to record tonight at 5:30 in FOTM cast. I want all those names just littered in this basement. You promise me?
Done.
Good. Okay.
From what I can remember, anyway.
Well, that's my job to extract those things.
Extract.
Okay. All right, let's go back, if you don't mind. Let's go back to the 60s here. Just set the table here. How long have you been cutting hair?
I've been in the business 59 years and have survived so far. Not easy. I always tell people I should get the Order of Canada for standing behind a chair for 59 years making women happy. Try and keep one woman a day happy. I got to keep 10.
Okay, well, listen, we're going to find out some of these women's names, actually. But is it Caruso? So I'm doing a little homework on Gary Chowen, okay? In the 1960s, in Yorkville, there's a salon called Caruso's.
Caruso's. It was one of the most famous salons in the world in the 60s. There was probably 3 great salons. There was Alexander in Paris, who did all the kings, queens, royalty of Europe. Kenneth in New York, who was the big society hairdresser who did, the Kennedys and so forth. And Caruso's here in Toronto on Bloor Street, which was right across from Varsity Stadium, the Royal Conservatory of Music. And it was an incredible, incredible place. I was like 13 maybe when I went to work there as a shampoo boy. And in those days, I mean, those guys, they were like rock stars. They had 3-piece Lou Miles suits, drove convertibles, dating all the hot models. You figure, how bad can this job really be? So it just kept going.
So is that near Avenue Road?
Yeah, it was between Avenue Road and Bedford. And I can recall the Bloor Street streetcar in those days.
Yeah.
We were like right in between the two stops at Bedford and Avenue Road, and the conductor would stop the car outside the salon in yell Caruso's, and it would basically like empty.
Wow. Okay, big deal. Caruso's in the 1960s, and you were there, and that's very young. Like, how do you get a gig at 13?
My father knew Mr. Caruso, and my father said, look, maybe you should get a part-time job after school. So he contacted him and got me a job as a shampoo boy on Saturdays. I went in, and then I just kept going in, and then they couldn't keep me away.
But did you have a passion for hairstyling?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay, so it's like a chicken and egg thing. Like, because you're there, you catch the bug.
Yeah, it just caught on, and I started doing it. And what was really crazy is how I started practicing there was, very few people know, the salon was above a place called Frederick's lingerie store on Bloor Street. Very high end.
Hey.
And as it turns out, it was a front for a call girl. High-class call girls that this lady was running.
High-class call girls.
And there was a back staircase to the salon. And I can remember these gorgeous-looking European women coming up the back staircase, and I would do their hair in the morning when I was like 14 or 15.
Okay.
And they'd all say, we're just starting work, Gary. We'll come back later. And they always gave me a few dollars.
Okay, I need to do an episode on the high-class call girls in this city back in the 60s. Like, that's a scene I need to know more about.
It did exist.
I believe it. Yeah. Of course. Absolutely. Now, the word salon, I need to ask you about the pronunciation of this word. So I'm listening to you now for all of, 5 minutes, and you say salon. I say salon. Is this another word I'm butchering? Is it salon?
No, tomato, Levine. It's of no difference.
Say brewery for me then. How do you say brewery?
Brewery.
Okay. You said it right, so you get yourself some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
I'm going to take up drinking again.
Well, so you quit drinking?
Oh, geez.
I'm keeping that beer then.
I had a PhD in it. No, you never know. I might make a comeback.
Oh, well, you have guests, right? I can trust you. You won't wake up in a ditch tomorrow, Gary, if I give you that Great Lakes.
No.
Okay.
I might wake up in a foreign country, which has happened before, but...
okay, that's another story we'll uncover here. Okay, we're just warming up, everybody. I'm just doing my stretches here. We've learned about the high-class call girls going to Caruso's. So you're there. Now, where do you work today? Sorry, I want to say it your way. What salon will we find you in today?
I am working back in Yorkville, where I was born, at number 100 Yorkville in the original Mount Sinai Hospital, which is now, I think, the Chanel building. I am now at a place, wonderful, wonderful people I'm working with, called Salon Raffaello at 132 Cumberland, directly across the street from the Big Rock. Okay. And ironically... I had that salon in the 1960s. We had a salon there, and I'm back at it. So I've come full circle.
Can you compare the Yorkville scene from the 60s that you remember to the Yorkville scene today? For us youngsters who only read about it.
Absolutely no comparison. It was fun. It was great. The characters. Now, as I call them, the Yorkville in crowd, they're all in debt, insecure, and totally insignificant to me. It's a joke. Yeah, I go to work and I leave immediately. Like not like the old days where you'd hit the coffee houses.
Right, like Joni Mitchell would be playing.
Everybody was
the
there.
Purple Onion or something,
You
or
bet.
the Riverboat Cafe would have Neil Young dropping by.
The Poppers, the Minor Birds. Yeah. Everybody was there.
Wow. Okay, I just learned, so we're live at live.torontomike.com, and the official historian of the Toronto Mike podcast is a gentleman named Jeremy Hopkin, and he tells me the name Gary... its origins is the name Gareth. So Gareth became Gary. Did you know this? You must have known this as a Gary.
I thought it came from the word garrison.
Okay, well, we have to fact check this. I got to get Robert Lawson out of the bushes. He can fact check all this. All this is going to happen behind the scene. You're in for a fun ride here, Gare. Anyone ever call you Gare?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I have a lot of nicknames.
Okay.
But yeah, Gare. Basically a lot of people call me GC.
GC. Oh my goodness. So many names I have to choose from here. By the way, my hair was cut by Andy the barber at your neighborhood barbershop here on Lakeshore. And it might be the polar opposite of going to a Yorkville salon.
No, it's an act, man. I mean, a haircut's a haircut.
So how am I doing? How's Andy doing with my hair? Is my hair okay?
Looks great.
Okay,
Got a
thank
nice
you.
full head of hair.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have that.
Well, listen, that's why you're here. You're
Mine's
here
deserted me. Good God, man.
But you're holding on.
Yeah, it's a visual.
Okay.
It's
Is
the
that
little.
is that the Donald Trump? What's going on there?
No, God, don't even mention his name to me. I'll get up and leave.
You know, somebody asked me the other day, actually Simon Head, who is making a lot of great films lately, he asked me, like, has anyone ever left? He's like, you've done over 1,500 episodes. Has anyone got up and left? And I said, nobody's ever got up and left, but I would love it. Like, I would love to be sitting here chatting with someone and they just storm out of here.
That'd be great. What a visual.
So just give...
Because you got it on camera.
I got it on camera, but just even the audio. Like,
yeah.
It's never happened, but I would love it to happen. So, Gary, if you want to get out and storm out, you'd just be making my day.
No, I'm pretty well here for the duration. I might even hang here all day. What's for
comfy.
lunch?
You're comfy here.
Yeah, I like
you know
it
what's
here.
for lunch? Palma pasta lasagna.
Oh, my God.
I got one in the freezer for you.
What a
Gary.
low-cal snack. Jeez.
We got to fatten you up, buddy.
Yeah, well.
Come on, you're fading away on me
I got
here.
beer and pasta.
All right, let's cut to the... I've warmed you up enough. Here it comes. You get a call to go to California. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I need the story. So you're a young teenager working at Caruso's, and you're not only working on the high class call girls, but you're working on some pretty I'm betting some pretty rich and famous clientele. I'm betting, but you get a phone call to get your butt to California. Tell us why. What's going on there?
Okay, so I had a friend of mine who is now deceased, my mentor in life, a gentleman by the name of Larry Robbins, who was the manager at Caruso's. So, a couple of gentlemen from Los Angeles, Chris Beard and Alan Bly, two hugely successful producers.
Can we pause? I'm so rude, except you said Chris Beard. I got to ask you, is this the Gong Show creator?
That was created in my living room at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a house on Forest Hill Road. Chris and I had smoked a little bit of good marijuana. And he goes, hey, what about this idea I have for a TV show? And he went on to give me the premise of The Gong Show. And I looked at him at 3 in the morning. I said, that may be the most stupidest thing I have ever heard in my life. Don't ever tell anybody that again. Well, he sold that to Chuck Barris, I think, for $3 million, the idea. But the original Gong Show came from a friend of Chris's. The name escapes me, in Australia, where Chris was from. Gentleman he directed Top of the Pops in London, England. Great old rock show in the old days. And so he did the Gong Show, but Chris took it from him and ran with it here in North America.
But that's okay. So now the fact that you just dropped a name, just getting yourself to California here, and it's Chris Beard who created the Gong Show. People think Chuck Barris created the Gong Show, but no. Chuck buys this idea or whatever
correct.
from Chris Beard. Okay, Now you may pick up your story.
Okay, so anyway, they came up here to do a replacement for the Ray Stevens show. The Andy Williams show in Los Angeles. And because in those days you'd shoot 26 episodes and then they'd run 26 episodes repeat, so you had your 52 years, as opposed to now where they shoot 8 episodes and call it a year. Right. So they came up here to do the Ray Stevens show, and they hired Caruso's to do the hair for the show. And so I became very close with Alan Bly and Chris Beard. Mm-hmm. They had, the Dick Van Dyke show, and they had finished writing the Elvis.
You're still friends with Dick Van Dyke? Do you know Dick Van Dyke?
Yeah, I've met Dick. Yeah, I've worked with him.
Is he as nice a guy as he seems?
He is beyond nice.
Okay.
I did a show with him and Cloris Leachman.
Okay.
There's an off-Broadway play called Breakfast with Les and Bess, where they were a married couple, radio hosts. And we spent a week at the old CFTO studios up on Scarborough, as we used to
Asian Court.
That's right. We used to call them CFI Care. A much better name for us. You're now watching CFI Care. And so we shot it up there.
Okay.
And Dick was coming off his divorce from Michelle at the time. And Cloris, who has the vocabulary of a truck driver, hated people who smoked cigarettes. So in those days, both Dick and I smoked. We would be sitting in the dressing room. Right. And she would be banging on our dressing room door, just laying into us with you effing this and you effing that. And
wow.
I used to go in to do her hair, and she'd be sitting there like naked or just in her bra. I'd say, Cloris, can you please put some clothes on, honey? It was just insane. But yeah, Dick is amongst the greatest people you could ever want to meet. And what a talent, huh?
Well, his greatest talent is that he's still alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And still dances and does that.
He's still active.
Yeah.
We always say, oh, you're pushing 50, you're pushing 60, this guy's pushing 100.
Yeah.
I mean, long may he run, but I'm glad to hear he's a good guy. He's evidence, okay? We now have empirical evidence. Smoking cigarettes doesn't shorten your life. Dick Van Dyke smoked the darts.
Yep.
The guy's still dancing a jig.
Still doing it.
Okay, so back to California.
Okay, so anyway, they came up here. They did the Andy Williams Summer Replacement Show, Ray Stevens, blah, blah, blah. So a year or so passes, and I get a phone call at about 2:30 in the morning. I was living with my father at the time. And no, actually, I wasn't. Sorry, I had my own apartment then. I think I was like 16, and I rented an apartment. And they asked me, how soon can you be in Los Angeles? And I said, I don't know, tomorrow? Not even knowing why, but, all I know is that they want to take me to Hollywood. So the arrangements were made, and the next day I was on a plane to Los Angeles, got picked up at the airport, taken to Sonny and Cher's house, and they said, this is who you work for, and we will see you tomorrow. We're going to Bob Mackey's, the famous dress designer, and Bob was just starting out too. It was one of his first big jobs. He used to work at a studio, very famous place called Elizabeth Courtney up on Melrose Avenue, and he was partners with Ray Agahan, who used to do Judy Garland's clothes, Greta Garbo, and on and on and on. And so the next day, there I am, and amongst all these people. Okay,
we got to slow it down for a moment here. Okay, what was it like? Like, no longer with us. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. But what was Sonny Bono like? And tell me about Cher when you first meet Cher. Like, this is a big deal, Cher.
I had actually met them previously when they did the original pilot for the Sonny and Cher show was shot at CFTO.
So we are going to have to, maybe after we get you back to Toronto from California, we're going to have to spend some quality time in aging court. That's what we're going to do. Okay.
Is there such a thing as quality time in aging court?
Well, we're going to find out. Okay. Because I have some bizarre questions for you. Wink, wink. Okay. So you're in California at Sonny and Cher's house, and this is a collaboration you're going to do with Bob Mackey? Like,
yes,
you're going to be Cher's personal hairdresser?
We were given the job to change her from hippie chick at the time to glam diva, which I think we did pretty good.
I'd say you succeeded.
Yeah, I think we did okay on that one. So we just sat down, Bob and I, and, talked about it, and he showed me some of the designs, and, I threw some hairdos, what we can do. There was a lot of wig work in those days because we'd shoot maybe 10 to 12 different sketches a day. So, you had minutes because time is money in the television business, of course. So you have like minutes before you can get them back out on stage. The hair people are the last people to get them. Wardrobe, makeup, and then into hair. And you got the floor director coming out. We need her. I just got her. So, there was a lot of pressure and stress when you shoot a TV show of that caliber.
And what was the name of the show exactly? Sonny and Cher's.
It was Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour.
Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. Okay, and this is a CBS show?
CBS.
Okay, and so there's a lot of talk about Cher's like hair transformation, like this long straight hair. Is that you? Did you do that?
Yes.
Gary.
What I used to
That's
do.
Why you're on Toronto Mic'd, buddy.
That's right. I'm happy to be here. So far, so good. Cher's actually had very wavy hair. And we didn't have the equipment like hair's flat irons we have now, and the products and the blow dryers with power. I used to it was an old method. You used to take a roller and put it on the top of their head, and then you take the hair wet and you start wrapping it around the head like a mummy.
Right.
And you pin it down, sit under an old hooded hair dryer 20 minutes, take it out, re-wrap it the other way, and a curly head of hair will come out like a sheet of glass. Wow. And that's how we got that iconic Cher do.
So you had many Americans and Canadians, women were trying to mimic this hairstyle, right? So you inspired millions of North Americans.
I used to come to work in the morning at CBS Television City, and they would stop me and give me fan mail. Wow! And people asking questions.
Gary Chowen. Okay.
Yeah, it was funny for a kid.
Yeah, because how old are you? You're still a teenager.
I'm 17, 18.
That math breaks my brain. Like, so you're 17, 18, and Cher is fine with trusting this, asset to this teenager?
She wasn't much
Toronto
older.
teenager?
She was only a couple of years older than me.
Sure.
Wait a minute.
Okay, let's find out what Cher was like. So now we know Dick Van Dyke, sweetheart. Glad to hear it. What was Cher like?
Absolutely fabulous.
Okay.
A wonderful, wonderful human being, straight up, no bullshit. One of the guys, just, I can't say enough about this woman, how kind she is and how great. And let's just throw in a little bit of talent there, too.
Well, she does win an Oscar eventually. Do you
And
take
an
any
Emmy.
credit for the Oscar and an Emmy? Yeah.
None whatsoever.
None for that. Okay.
No.
But, who knows? You could draw a line. Maybe without that hair on the Sonny and Cher.
May not have got her there. You're right.
Maybe Norman Jewison doesn't call her up and say, hey, I got a script.
Yeah, I loved your hair, so can you act?
Let's find out. Okay.
Can you act without the hair?
What was Sonny like? He skied into a tree, right? This is the end of Sonny Bono.
Supposedly, yeah.
What do you know something else?
I
Because
can't.
that's what was reported.
They got better lawyers than I do.
Okay. So you have to do
yeah.
like that trick where you don't talk about Sonny, talk about Bobby, this friend of yours, Bobby. How did Bobby die?
Well, it was a little peculiar that, Sonny was a pretty good skier. He knew that terrain. He had skied there before. And, you just don't ski into a tree head first and die.
Maybe, yeah.
There is
Interesting.
talk from a few people that something may have happened to him. I think
Well,
Sonny
he was a congressman, right?
Well, Sonny was put there by certain people, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, listen, I watched The Sopranos. I got a feeling I
we
know
can
where
end
this
it
is
right
going.
there. Yeah,
Okay.
he was pretty well connected.
Don't
Sonny.
stop believing. Boom.
Yeah.
Sonny hits the tree.
Well, Sonny couldn't do many favors for these people after a while.
What kind of guy was Sonny?
Not my favorite human being at all.
No.
Used to be Friday night poker games. The guy would cheat for a few bucks. He was not too well liked by a lot of people, Sonny. He just, listen, I admire the guy for what he did. He wrote some great songs, and he knew Cher was the meal ticket and he was the brains behind it all. But he screwed her over financially and everything at the end, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, even after year one, I could see a difference in the two of them. Would finish the show, she'd go her way, he'd go his way. Yeah, he wasn't my favorite human being.
That's too bad. And, I guess the marriage ends. Does that what ends the show? Like, does the show, the Sonny and Cher show that you worked on,
of course.
it ends because the marriage ends?
Well, also,
essentially?
as I've always said, marriage is the number one cause of divorce. So
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. Even though they enjoyed the money, the fame, and they did do gigs after, they separated because they were under contract to do it. They had to, otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the rock bands. We're breaking up, but we have obligated to play these festivals, and we're going to
Precisely.
run out the string here. Okay.
Yes.
Just don't talk to me, okay?
Right.
Okay. All right. So before we get you back to Toronto, are there any big names you can tell me that you met because they were on Sonny and Cher show? One name I'm thinking about, no longer with us. There's going to be a lot of shouts out to Ridley Funeral Home on this episode. By the way, Ridley Funeral Home, Gary, wants you to have their official measuring tape. Measure what you wish, Gary. It's up to you. What would you like
measure
to
my
measure?
coffin?
I'm glad you said coffin. I was like, where's that word going?
Wow. What a strange thing.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home.
Well, hey, Ridley, thank you. I'll go home and measure something.
Burt
My ego? I'm not sure.
Burt Reynolds.
Love him. Love Burt.
Okay, did you meet Burt on the Sonny and Cher?
Yes, of
okay,
course.
Tell me about Burt Reynolds, who for a period of time was the biggest box office draw in America.
He was a great guy. God, I remember with Chris. I mean, it was kind of funny that the executive producer of the show would pick me up in the morning and drive me to work, and he'd say, "Oh, we got to go pick Burt up today," and he'd pile in the back, and off we'd go to studio. But we had so many people on that show. I mean, Ronald Reagan. I couldn't even be Jerry Lewis and.
Oh, I have to assume. Did you do Jerry Lewis's hair?
No. He always looked like he took 2 sardines and combed his hair in the morning.
He's a guy I would think would be cantankerous. Like he doesn't give me warm fuzzies.
Not at all. I don't know anybody who ever liked him.
All right, we're spilling a lot of tea on this program here. Have you ever seen that movie no one's seen? The Day the Clown Died, or The Day the
I saw
Clown
bits and pieces of
Laughed?
it. But
What was it called? The Day the Clown Laughed? I have to Google the name of this thing.
Yeah.
But, the Holocaust movie.
I don't know, something or other. Yeah. Okay. If he's in it, I'm not watching it.
You're going to pass on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other name drops from the Sonny and Cher era before we get you back to Toronto? I've got questions about Agincourt.
Back to
I'm the only guy. I might be the only guy you'll ever, record a podcast with who's probably more interested in Agincourt than Sonny and Cher.
Strange.
I know.
Mayor Mike of Agincourt, we should make you. What was great about the Sonny and Cher show, where we shot it at CBS, next to us was the Carol Burnett show, which we had on as a guest. And in the studio next to us was All in the Family. And I was actually in the building the day of the famous show and All in the Family. They had Sammy Davis on.
Wow.
And Sammy came into our dressing room that day. We were shooting at the same time.
Yeah.
Say hi. And the building was absolutely electric. And it became one of the most famous shows on television. It was when Archie and, Sammy Davis hooked up.
Oh, when they hooked up. Yeah, that's a show where if you're going to put together a list of greatest sitcoms of all time,
it would have to
almost
be
always number one is All in the Family.
Yeah.
Norman Lear only passed away last year, I think. Speaking of guys who, pushing 100, he might have hit 100. I can't remember. But great show. Were you friends with any of these cast members, like Carol O'Connor or any?
Yeah, I used to go over and watch them rehearse, and the rehearsal halls at CBS, which are on the other side of the building, which you need a cab to get to. It's so big. The rehearsal halls, there was vending machines out there, and Sally Struthers always used to hit me up for quarters so she could buy chocolate bars.
Well, that's funny.
She never ever repaid me either. Now that I think of it.
Well, it's not too late to get that money.
Well, no, I don't think I think I might be working more than her.
Well, and also all her money goes to help animals. As I
God bless her,
recall.
and that's a good cause. Let her keep my quarters.
She can keep your quarters here. Now you're young. You're still a teenager. You're hanging out with Burt Reynolds, for goodness sake, Sonny and Cher, and I'm wondering why you even come back to Toronto. Like, you seem like you should have stayed in LA. Like you're Hollywood Gare.
I'll be very honest with you. I got sent home by certain people who were connected to Sonny. When they were getting divorced, I actually got a phone call from somebody. And he said, I think it's time you went back to Toronto. I'm hearing you're getting phone calls from certain, publications, Silver Screen Magazine, and Inquirer, offering you some money to spill the beans, because who knows more than anybody else but hair and makeup people.
Wow, Gare.
And so I phoned a friend of mine and said, so-and-so just called me and told me, it's best I go back to Toronto for a while. And I'll never forget the words that were said to me. He says, be thankful he phoned you. He likes you.
Okay, you could have woke up with a horse head in your bed.
Well, let's not go to that extreme, Mike. But I knew the message from these people, and I'd had enough. It was just brutal at the end, being there.
Well, who needs to deal with those people?
I'm
Sopranos.
a simple man. I do hair.
You're a hairstylist to the stars, and there are stars in Agincourt.
Yes, there are.
Okay, so that's wild, that story. I would pull at these threads. I'm sure there's more to that story, but maybe that's the sequel when you, on your deathbed, you're going to tell me that one.
Yeah, that'll be my,
many years from now.
My headstone.
No, when you're in that bed and they say, okay, Gary, you've got
It'll be in my book. I'm calling it Therapy.
Are you working on a book?
I am, a little bit. I've, got little things written down. I'm calling it Therapy because I'm a therapist.
This is like the teaser trailer for the book then. When this book comes out, there's
I'll
going to be a lot
come on your
more
show
stuff.
and we'll read it together.
And I just want to know about these guys who paid you a visit. I think it's time you take a little vacation. Okay.
You go home.
Don't fit me for cement shoes. That's what you're saying. I don't want to sleep with the fishes.
I don't look good in cement. No.
Luke Brasi. I don't want to follow his lead
sleep
on
with the fishes.
Right. Okay. So you come back to Toronto. And of course, you're born in Yorkville. You're a Toronto guy, and I'm doing the math. You're still young.
I'm young.
You're still young today.
I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up.
So how do you get involved with what's going on with CFI Care, CFTO, Agincourt, the productions there?
Well, ironically, it's funny. You're right. I ended up back in Agincourt, where it all started, because Bly Beard used to come up here and shoot all their shows. We did the David Steinberg show, the Bobby Vinton show. On and on we shot up there, because don't forget, in those days, you were getting 50 cents on the dollar, Right. So it was great. The Americans came up here, and they loved working up here because the Canadian crews were so much better than the American crews. Look, anybody can move to California in a year. You're a producer. Up here, you start out pulling cable, and you learn every job on the way up. They loved it here.
All right, so we're going to dive into some of the details here, but you're there to style the hair of guests on these shows and the hosts of these shows?
And a lot of other little things I did. Once we did a show, Chris came up here to do a show, and it was one of the very, very first cable TV shows. It was for Viacom, which I think became Showtime. And we're doing a show. It was for Playboy, and it was called the Sex and Violence Family Hour. Try and get away with that nowadays.
Well, it depends on the network.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so Chris came up and he made me the associate producer on the show.
And that's when you thought I should add another R to Gary.
No, that was before. That was in the Sonny and Cher show.
Okay.
Yeah. So it may have been the only show in the history of television when the credits ran. At the top, it said associate producer Gary Chowen, and at the bottom, it said hair Gary Chowen.
They do it all. He does it all. He does it all. So Sex and Violence. And that where would that air?
And that let me tell you a funny story though. Jim Carrey. We had Jim Carrey on. We gave him his very first job ever. Chris and I, we needed Canadian content in those days, so we went to Yuck Yucks when it was on Bay in Yorkville.
Of course.
And there's this kid, 17 years old, just ripping up the stage. Place was going crazy. Chris says, we got to get this kid on the show. So after his set, we went up to him and pitched him, and he was freaking right out. He goes, really? On television? So we hired him on the spot, brought him out to CFTO. And I can remember Jim in the hallways saying to me, Gary, he says, what's Hollywood really like? And I remember telling him, I said, be very careful. That town can eat you up. Well, luckily he didn't pay much attention to me, and the kid got a career.
And then Ace Ventura, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jim Carrey, who was, I remember in the early days of In Living Color, which is what breaks him essentially, he was going by the name James Carrey, as I recall.
Know that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the credits. Maybe because that's longer than Jim. He had your tip.
See?
You're wise.
You learned
guy.
well.
Chowen, you know your shit, okay? So let me just break this down again. So you're at Yuck Yucks. By the way, Mark Breslin has been on this very show, sitting in that very
he's still
seat.
a client of mine. We talked about you a few weeks ago.
Did
he was
you?
in. Yeah.
I had a great chat with Mark, and I remember him telling me he didn't think Jim Carrey was very good.
Yeah.
He did not see a future for Jim Carrey, but you did. See, you know more about comedy than Mark Breslin.
I'll never tell Mark that because he'll stop coming.
He's listening. Hello, Mark. No.
Hi, Mark.
So you cut Mark's. I got to know all these. We kind of do a lot of A-list stuff, but I'm actually kind of more interested. Not that Mark's a big deal. Okay, I'm not trying to discredit him, but I'm more interested in the C's and the D's. But we'll get there. Okay, so Jim Carrey, you see something in this kid, this teenager on stage at Yuck Yucks, and you're like, that guy should be on TV. You gave him his TV debut.
Exactly.
Jim Carrey.
Somewhere is a tape of Jim, and I think it was my girlfriend at the time who had a little maid's outfit on with no underwear, him chasing her around the living room in one of the scenes.
Okay, what was his show?
It was called the Sex and Violence Family Hour.
For
Playboy.
For Playboy Productions. Jim Carrey's television debut is the Sex, and your name is all over the credits of this thing. It's an executive producer, it's hairstylist. Okay, the Jim Carrey story might be more mind-blowing than the Sonny and Cher story. I think that's like the billing number one.
Okay.
So I'm glad we got it on the public record here. Forever, when people say, is Jim Carrey an FOTM? That means friend of Toronto Mike. They'll be going, no, but the guy who gave him his TV debut, Gary Chowen, is an FOTM.
Yeah.
And shout out to Mark Breslin.
We like Mark.
We all like Mark very, very much. Okay. So there's a question on the live stream while we've got you in aging court now. And we're going to cover a lot of bases here. There's another FOTM that you're very tight with from that era. But the question is, did you ever meet Billy Van when he was working on those shows?
Boy, oh boy, Billy and I go back. We had a lot of fun times together.
I need more details because he was a regular on Sonny and Cher. And
And we had him on a lot of shows up here that we worked on. But yeah, we used to go out at night and have a little bit of fun, Billy and I.
Wow.
He was so talented.
Yeah.
And just as nice and maybe nicer than Dick Van Dyke.
That's almost impossible.
Billy was absolutely a gem of a human being.
Billy Van, of course, Hilarious House of Frightenstein is where I know all my Billy Van from, and he was tremendous. Are you responsible for his perm?
Not at all.
You're removing yourself from that credit.
No, I never ever cut Billy's hair, actually, now that we think of it.
Okay, so you just were doing things you can't talk about on the podcast.
Precisely.
Wow, I need the uncut Billy Van story from you. That'll be another episode too. Okay, so where else? Okay, let's talk about a gentleman who's been on Toronto Mic'd. So I had a wonderful conversation with John Biner. I'll read the description and let people know if they wanted to pause this and come back. Go to episode 1113 of Toronto Mike. Here's what I wrote. Mike is joined by John Byner as they discuss his several decades in comedy, including The Ed Sullivan Show, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, The Carol Burnett Show. She's still with us, by the way. As is, of course, John. Bizarre, which is where you're going to come in here with Super Dave Osborne and so much more. And we chatted for almost 90 minutes. A lot of great stories in that. Please tell me about your relationship with John Byner and working on Bizarre.
Bizarre. John, again, is maybe one of the greatest humans I've ever known. He is godfather to my daughter.
Wow.
I've seen this man do things for people. Not to make a long story boring, but John bought an island in Fiji. When he finally got some money, bought a 200-acre island in Fiji.
Right.
There was a family there who took care of his island. They had they lived on the mainland, and they had a daughter who was born with no arms. John, at his own expense, flew mother, father, her brother. These are people who have never been down the road 2 miles this way or that way.
Right.
They live in like Hoopisville, nowhere down in Fiji.
That's Yiddish.
Flew them.
That's Yiddish. I know that term from Mark Hebscher, who I co-hosted a show for 5 years. Love it when I hear Yiddish.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
Okay, so make a long story miserable. John flew them to California, paid all the medical expenses at UCLA Medical Center, so this girl could be outfitted with arms.
Oh my goodness.
Tell me how special a human that is.
You know, I knew he was special when he agreed to a 90-minute chat with me. That's how I knew he was special. But this story, I'm glad you're sharing this story, because while John's still with, how is he doing though? It's been a few years.
He's doing great. I spoke to him last week.
Because he's pushing 90.
Yeah, it was his birthday last week.
Okay, happy birthday to John Byner. I'll tell you, I loved watching Bizarre. But I watched it on WUTV. CFT. Where was I watching? I was watching where I didn't see boobs.
Oh, you didn't see the HBO the Showtime version?
No, so tell me how that worked, please. Like, did you shoot certain
we
scenes
had two different
twice?
versions of Bizarre. Tuesday morning in studio, we did nudity. And for some reason, all the executives at CFTO, CFI Care, would miraculously show up in the studio that day when we'd never seen them before.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, we had a closed set, but, they owned the building and they were the execs, so we had to let them in so they could see boobies on Tuesday morning.
Okay, so that morning is when you would shoot all the topless scenes, and that was for Showtime.
Yes.
And then you'd have the, PG version or whatever.
Yeah, then we'd reshoot it with, clothes on.
Because I do remember it being sexy, right? But tight T-shirts and stuff, and it was good enough for young Mike. But I don't remember any, like on Benny Hill once. I remember I saw a nipple on Benny Hill.
Really? I'm surprised.
I know.
Wow.
I know. And some people like, really? I'm like, no, I promise you, because I was like,
and you know your nips, right?
I know. I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I saw this nipple because they had it on. That was on WUTV. Benny Hill show was aired on WUTV, and I would watch it every day. And I saw the nipple, like a shower scene of these, and I saw the nipple, and it was amazing. And Bizarre, I don't remember seeing any nipples, but I do, now that I think about it, Ziggy Lawrence is an FOTM, and she came over and talked about being recruited to be one of the topless, sexy women that you would see on Bizarre. Yeah. So she did let me into this other side that I never saw the Showtime version. Mm-hmm. I feel I missed out.
We did. I mean, I think every, wannabe actress in the city was on Bizarre. A lot of them, who I knew from nightclubs or whatever, I was quite surprised when they showed up and wanted to do topless scenes.
Did you do some recruiting for those scenes? Like, did they ever send you out? Go, we need some.
No, not me. No. We had casting people who did all that.
Okay. I wondered if you volunteered for it. No.
No, no, not that.
Okay, what can you tell me about Bizarre? Maybe that'd be interesting. Firstly, I would like to ask you about Bob Einstein, of course, because Super Dave comes out of Bizarre.
Stupid Dave, as we used to call it. We used to have a flag made up that when we were on location would show up in people's lawns or were using their house. And on the sign, it had the People's Republic of Dave. It was planted. We're in your neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, first of all, we couldn't believe that we were actually getting paid every week for Bizarre. And then we really couldn't believe it when we got paid to do Super Dave. We had a great time with Super Dave. Bob is a character, great guy, funny as hell, moody as hell. And yeah, we had a fun time with Bob. No doubt about it. Good guy, good family.
Yeah, his
what a
brother is
family.
Albert Einstein, but he
Yeah.
went by Albert Brooks because there was an Albert Einstein.
Yeah,
Which is a
I
fun
think that
thing.
name, a little bit more famous than Brooksy. Yeah, and they were really never best of friends, those two.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw the documentary, the Albert Brooks documentary out. Absolutely a must to see. I think he only mentions Bob once in it. Yeah, it's very strange.
Albert Brooks,
Genius.
amazing,
Absolutely.
genius. And even just alone Simpsons guest appearances.
Yep.
He's Hank Scorpio. I
Yep.
mean, he's Jacques the Bowler. I mean, in the movie, I can't remember. It should have been Hank Scorpio, but they made it a different character
Yep.
for some reason in the Simpsons movie. But and his movies, amazing. Albert Brooks, hilarious.
Yeah, watch the documentary.
Okay, I think I have, but I got to revisit that one. Here's a little tie-in here to the community here, the Toronto Mike universe, is that the drummer for the Bare Naked Ladies. Have you cut any hair from any Bare Naked Ladies? Tyler Stewart.
Tyler used to be my driver on Super Dave.
That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, he used to pull up and he'd have a cup of coffee, the Globe and Mail, and I'd sit in the back and off would go to set.
He came over to talk about driving
Yeah.
Bob Einstein around.
You drove Bob, and other days he'd pick me up.
Don't you think that's kind of a wild story that this guy, because he's sort of like, oh yeah, you're driving. This is like a job for a young
Yeah.
guy to drive
he was
people
a
to Aging Court.
Production assistant.
But before you know it, he's the drummer on a Billboard Hot 100 #1
Who knew?
song.
Who knew?
Mind blowing. But you've never cut Tyler Stewart.
No, never cut his hair. No.
Okay, he's got good hair. I think he's missing out.
And
So
talented. Who knew?
Tyler, if you're listening, because I know you listen, you need to go to Salon Raphael at 132
I think
Cumberland
he shaves
Street.
his head, doesn't he? I mean,
Oh, I haven't. Maybe you're right. Maybe Maybe you'll work on his eyebrows.
he's a number 2. Just shave it down to the wood.
You can work on his goatee. Maybe we'll talk. We'll talk here. All right. I loved Happy Days. This was a show. I was a young man. One of my first favorite sitcoms was Happy Days. Tell me about working with Pat Morita.
Whoa, Pat. Hey, what a fun night we had him. We had him on, I guess, Bizarre, or Super. I'm not sure which one. It was so long ago. But we spent a very funny night in John's hotel room at the Royal York Hotel, which I think we used to call the Royal Dork, because the cast and crew of Bizarre is staying at the wonderful Royal York Hotel.
Right.
Anyway, it's about 2 or 3 in the morning, a few libations and maybe some other things. And it had one of those really bad velvet paintings that you'd see on walls of Elvis or something else, or a sunset.
But not dogs playing poker.
No, they didn't have that one. But Pat, may have had a little too much to drink. Kept saying, "Man, I love that painting, love it." So anyway, we finally got him out of the room, back to his room, and off to the airport. And John and I decided, let's take the painting off the wall, man, and send it to the airport, and it'll be waiting for him when he got there. And we shipped it off. I don't know what the hell happened to it after that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, or even if we did, but we were really ready to send it to the airport so he could take it home to L.A. But, it's funny. You see him on Happy Days or
The Karate
Kid.
Yeah.
And, he's got that Japanese, Chinese, the lingo. In real life, he's like an 8 to the bar, bebop, a loobop, daddy-o type dude. It's like, whoa.
He has to fake the accent when he plays a...
Yeah, exactly. He don't talk
Miyagi
like that.
is what he's playing.
Yeah,
right.
he's...
That holds up, by the way. The Karate Kid. I got to say that holds up. So
definitely. Great flick.
It's
yeah.
really good. Yeah. Okay, so Pat Morita, I think you met him on Bizarre, but one of those things here. All right, I'm going to ask you about a couple of heavyweight champions, Evander Holyfield and George Foreman.
Wow, yeah.
I'm jogging your memory today.
Well, Bob Einstein was a big sports fan. Loved having guys from sports on.
Can you do a Bob Einstein impression?
Not at all. Not like John. John does Bob Einstein. I don't do voice. I do Gary Chowen voices. And so we had Holyfield on, and I had to make him a Don King wig.
Oh, yeah.
And this ridiculous wig that he had on, and Fuji. Art, I can't remember, Iragawa, the man who played Fuji, Bob's sidekick.
Right.
And he takes his hat off and this wig springs up like Don King. But Holyfield, just a sweet, sweet man. And Foreman, I got a great picture of George and I going toe to toe. I was giving him advice on the Tyson fight coming up. Here's what you got to do, George. But yeah, nice guys. You never know what they could do to you.
Well, Foreman seems like a nice guy. He, in the Rumble in the Jungle?
Sure.
But he didn't seem nice in that. Like the doc they made about the Muhammad Ali.
Yeah,
fight,
you're right.
He seemed angry. But then in his later, I don't know, he was he was old when he won that title. I think he was in his 40s, mid 40s, or he was an older boxer.
He was probably uptight in Rumble in the Jungle because the whole nation of Africa was for Ali and nobody wanted George to win.
Ali Boumbaye.
Yeah.
Ali Boumbaye. Great documentary.
Yeah, I'd be pissed too if a whole country was mad at me.
I guess so, but they always showed him he had a big dog or whatever. He just looked really angry, but surly. But it turns out he's a happy-go-lucky, lovely man.
Time softens people, man.
But did he really name all his kids?
Yes, George.
George,
yeah. Isn't that great?
It's great, but
it's great if you have Alzheimer's disease.
Like imagine you had 5 kids, Gary, and you named them all Gary. Like there's something egotistical about
one
that.
Would have 1 R, one would have 2, and one would have 3, and so
one
forth.
would be Gare.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to George Foreman.
Yeah. Hi, George.
Who made a lot of money with that grill.
Beating people up.
Well, the grill.
Yeah.
I understand, and I don't know if this is urban legend or not. They offered that grill to Hulk Hogan. Did you ever hear this story?
No.
And he turned it down, I think, and then George Foreman accepted the... anyway, Hey, how about Robert Lawson? You fact-check that story I heard about Hulk Hogan being offered the grill first, okay, and then George Foreman getting it because Hulk said... No, Terry Balboa, if I remember correctly. Okay.
Wow.
I have a little bit of a memory, but it's wrong half the time. That's why I have a fact checker. I want to get these.
It's called
right.
Sometimers. Sometimes you remember, sometimes you don't. Then you get most timers, and then you're done.
Okay. So we did shout out Ridley Funeral Home already, but just before I give you another gift, is it true that you have fixed the hair of a deceased person before?
Yes, I did.
Well, share that story now, only because
geez.
Brad Jones is the funeral director at Ridley Funeral Home. I produce his podcast, Life's Undertaking. It's fantastic.
Brad, please don't call me and ask me to do this. I'm out of that business, man. Yeah,
but we talk about this in great detail about how important this is for the loved ones.
Well, yeah, they should look good when they leave. It was actually my father phoned me up. It was his girlfriend who passed away. So he phones me up and he says, look, they don't like the way that they did her hair. Can you help me out and go over and do something? And so it's your dad. Of course you got to do something. Off I go. There's a place out on Queen Street, I recall. Trull or I don't know. And I go in and they put me in the room and there she is laying there. I figure, oh, man, this isn't good. And this gentleman standing behind me looked like Lurch from the Addams Family, breathing down. Hey, excuse me, you got to go, man.
Right.
So, true story, her hair, because she'd been deceased for 4 or 5 days, I don't know, and it was all cold and clammy, and she had long, awful hair. And no one was around, and I picked it up, and I took my scissors, I went, and I just cut it all off, shoved it underneath the body. Nobody was going to see it. Did the best, and I went next door to a bar and got drunk.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a once in a lifetime.
Oh, and never again. Is that right?
No,
so if Brad
why
called
would
you and
you?
said, we need some help with this hair.
Oh, Brad, I'm sorry. Anything else I'd do for you, but,
Now I'm thinking of that caramel commercial. Anything? Remember that one with the devil? Anything? Okay, now I'm going to do kind of a rapid fire, but first I'm going to give you this wonderful book on that. It's the history of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. They play at Christie Pitts.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to you a sports fan?
I enjoy sports. Yeah, I'm not.
No ticket required. It's a beautiful community event. You can have a beer. You can.
I even know that guy's first name, Jack.
You got it.
Jack Domenico.
He's no longer with us.
Yeah, I know.
And the family sold the team. And I'm very, very good friends with one of the owners of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team,
Wow.
Keith Stein, who's a sweetheart. Keith, if you're listening, I missed you at last Sunday's game, but we had a great recording. I had Rich Butler on. Mike Richards was my co-host. Blair Packham from the Jitters. Blair Packham gets his hair cut by a guy named Don Pyle. Don Pyle, kind of a punk pioneer in this city, is a founding member of the band Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet.
Isn't that a great name?
And they did the theme song for Kids in the Hall.
Well, there's a good claim to fame.
I know. So Don Pyle cuts. There you go. So I had a guy who was cut by Don Pyle, who of course does a theme song for Shadow. It's called "Having an Average Weekend." That's the song they play. So Keith, we missed you at Christie Pitts, but I'm going to be back there the first Sunday of August. I'm going to throw out the first pitch, and then I'm going to record to people. You got to get yourself, Gary, to Christie Pitts.
You know what? Listen, quickly,
wonderful.
I used to go to Old Maple Leaf Stadium as a kid here to watch.
Where the Tip Top Tailors, there, the Stadium
and
Road.
I got vivid memories of the hallways
That was a beautiful,
with the beautiful arches
stadium.
as a kid. And I used to,
It's the same
Sparky
team.
Anderson was the manager. And
Right.
yeah, I can remember all that.
Okay, Larry Milson, who covered the Blue Jays forever for the Globe and Mail, and he still covers the Blue Jays for another outlet. I actually talked to him at Christie Pitts on Sunday when I was at this Toronto Maple Leafs game, which is very high caliber, entertaining baseball. It was a great day too. But Larry used to go to those games at the old Maple Leaf Stadium, and every time I see pictures of the stadium, I think it's too bad we blew it up and tore it down.
It's Toronto.
But,
We love tearing down old stuff. It's what we do.
There's an episode of Toronto Mike with Jeremy Hopkin where we talk about 10 buildings we destroyed but shouldn't have. And Maple Leaf Stadium is on the list.
People talk about the construction in this. It's not construction, it's destruction. They're slowly tearing this city apart.
You're so right. So everybody come out to Maple Leafs baseball, grab a beer, get a hot dog, and sit on we call it Fill the Hill. Sit on the hill at
Love
Christie
that.
Pitts.
That's great.
Great baseball, and I can't wait to be back there in early August.
Great.
Okay, so I'm literally gonna throw names at you.
Okay.
You're gonna tell me any story you remember about this person, and then at the very end there'll be an opportunity for you to tell me a story, if you wish, that I never prompted for. So we're going to go rapid fire. One of them I do need, though, is I did tease it in the intro. You shared a bottle of scotch with Ed McMahon in the back of a limo. Tell me that story.
Yeah, I think we had him on the Bobby Vinton show. And,
Hi-oh!
yeah, out in Agincourt, your favorite place.
Shout out to Uncle Bobby. Who's
Yep. God, I won't say that, but...
Cranky Pants, right?
He had the cocktail or two when he worked, I think.
I heard he enjoyed
Uncle Slobby.
But he also drove a school bus. Like, he would drive children in a school bus as a job. Like, yeah, I know. So hopefully his drinking was after
hopefully
hours.
Not, yeah. I remember one day at CFTO, I was going up to the commissary, and we had on George Goebel and Jay Silverheels, Tonto, right?
Okay.
And the two of them, pardon me, it wasn't Tonto. That was another show. Captain
That was Lone Ranger.
We had George Goebel and Captain Kangaroo, my childhood hero.
Wow.
Right? And in uniform, full regalia.
Wow.
They were walking back from the commissary. I'm walking to it, and they got milkshake containers, and they are bouncing off that wall. Milkshake. They went to the commissary to get ice for their drinking straight scotch. Both of them absolutely stinking drunk. Oh. Absolutely destroyed me on Captain Kangaroo.
Wow.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But Uncle Bobby...
I'm surprised he wasn't with them.
I understand that when they would film Uncle Bobby's show in Agincourt, that Uncle Bobby would enjoy maybe spending some quality time with the single moms, and I don't know if they were always single, but husbands weren't around, but the single moms that were in attendance. Is that true?
I don't know.
Okay, well...
Excuse me.
I know you can't tell all the tales.
I never saw that.
That one's been shared.
I don't
on
think
the
they were
program before.
taping the days that we were shooting. Anyway, back to
but better you hit on the kids' moms than hit on the kids. That's what I say. So good for Uncle Bobby there. Okay, now do you? Sorry, you go ahead there.
Yeah,
Gary.
we're do Ed McMahon.
Yeah, we're gonna do Ed McMahon, but now because before I forget,
okay.
I know, we're gonna Ed McMahon's coming back.
It's your
here.
show, man.
You drank scotch with Ed McMahon in the back of a limo. We are definitely getting that story. Although later we'll find out you smoked weed with 3/4 of the Beatles, so we'll get to that story too. That's a little. That's a teaser.
Whoa, boy!
But were you there at Agincourt when Just Like Mom was being filmed, or are you gone by then?
Who was in that show?
Fergie Oliver. So Fergie Oliver and his wife at the time, Catherine Swift.
Yeah, sure. That's right. He married her. I forgot that.
They were married.
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of Fergie, to be honest. I'd see him in the hair and makeup room.
But he has a good head of hair. You never got to work on that.
No, I never did the staff of CFTO. I was always I was hired to do the star or whatever show I was working on, and that's all I did.
What was it you didn't like about Fergie?
Attitude, ego. I was thinking, you read the news, man. Lighten up. Harvey Kirk was a great guy.
And it was sports, right? Which is the toy department.
Yeah.
You're not even doing the hard-hitting news. You're a sports reporter on CFTO. Okay. Shout out to Paul Burford, who created Just Like Mom. And they had a different host for the first year, and then Fergie came in. Paul's been on the program. People can find that in the feed. Fergie's been over Fergie Oliver's episode. It's the only piece of media he's done in quite some time, and that was a wild visit. People can hear the Fergie Oliver episode of Toronto Mike, but now I need the Ed McMahon story.
Okay, so anyway, we had him on the show, and I think they were all staying then. The hotel deal was Hotel Toronto or something on Richmond Street. And Ed wanted to get back to the studio, and the driver had left, and we arranged. I made a phone call and got another limo in for him. And I said, well, I need to ride back to Toronto too. So we get in the back of the limo, and he pulls out, he's got a little bag he's carrying with and just personal stuff. And he pulls out a bottle of Johnny Walker and says, you want a drink?
Woo!
Hey, well, hello.
I hear he liked the sauce
big
too.
time. And he drank
often on the Tonight Show.
Yeah. But what's really sad is he died broke. Yeah, it was really a sad ending for his life, a man like that.
And that is too bad.
You know, definitely.
He's probably calling you right now. Is that Ed McMahon?
His lawyer phoning me.
From heaven.
Sorry,
yeah,
it's
he's
my
like,
text. I should have turned my phone off.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Oh, so more on the Ed McMahon? Or
Yeah, he drank about 3/4 of it, and, you know, we poured ourselves out of the limo. But it was just fun sitting there with Ed McMahon.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah, and you can dine on that story for the rest of your life if you shared a bottle of scotch of Ed McMahon in the back of a limo. At least I would, okay?
Okay.
Morgan Freeman.
Love him. Worked with Morgan. We did a movie in Federal Penitentiary. God, I can't remember. The name escapes me. It was a true life story starring Jeff Fahey. And Morgan played the warden of the show in this movie. It was a made-for-TV movie. We shot it live at CFDO in Agincourt.
There you go.
We had to do in a federal penitentiary, shoot the penitentiary stuff, which was inserted into the live telecast, and it was directed by Dan Petrie, who did Playhouse 90, right, and directed HUD, you know, and Good Canadian Boy.
Love the name drops. That's before Morgan Freeman became the Morgan Freeman we know him today.
Yeah.
He was on his way up.
Yeah.
Because did you know he did another prison movie called Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah, he did that after. I think he learned from our show. But I know one thing. It wasn't fun being the hairdresser in a federal penitentiary.
Oh.
I went up to my friend the next day and I said, look, I think I need danger pay.
Right.
I didn't know you could put certain words together in a sentence. I had a few things said to me because we were right in with the general population.
Wow, it's like Oz, man.
And we had George Zundra in that, who was in that movie with Sharon Stone. We had a lot
and he
of
was on
people.
Law and Order, right?
Yeah,
Early.
great actor.
Yes, because I remember I was a big Law and Order fan for like the first 10 years, and he was like an OG Law and Order guy. Wow.
Yeah, he was in it. Jeff Fahey, who did Lawnmower Man. He played, and him and the director actually went to Huntsville, Texas, to watch the execution, because the movie was called The Execution of Raymond Graham. It was about a prisoner they executed in Huntsville, and they actually watched the actual execution.
Wow.
So they could film it properly, and Jeff could do the proper movements. Whew. Yeah, scary movie. And I was cutting Morgan's hair in the prison barbershop, and had these three gentlemen who were residents of the prison, chained to a bench, watching me, giving a running commentary of this white honky cutting one of the brothers' hair.
Oh.
And then they said, hey, man, can you, because they were going to be in one of the scenes that we were shooting later.
Oh, like an extra.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
So they said,
Makes it authentic.
They said, hey, man, can you shave our heads so we look bad in this? And I'm thinking, really? Finish Morgan. He goes to set. I get out my big shears, and I mowed these three guys down, just shaved them bald, left them sitting there chained to a bench.
Man, these stories, you do need to write a book, these stories. Okay. I, like many of my generation, we'd come home from school, and in syndication on the television would be Leave It to Beaver, and we would watch it. It's funny how that was, you watched what was on TV before this on-demand universe arrived. I can't imagine my kids like, oh, I'm just going to watch this show from like, what would be the equivalent from the 1980s or whatever. So Wally and the Beav, Tony Dow.
Yep.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. And Jerry Mathers. Tell me what it was like with these guys.
Well, of course, same thing, coming home from school, watching Leave It to Beaver, and then getting to work with them. Jerry Mathers, the Beaver, had the personality of a chair.
Oh!
And Wally, we spent a day, man, just having a great chat. He had a company in California called The Deck Doctor. He built decks. And just the most sweetest man. you'd ever want to meet. Really a good guy. The Beeve, pass.
Okay.
What was great on that show, we had like everybody on this one show. We shot it at Global, not far from Agincourt, right? Barbara Green Road in the time.
Okay.
And we had on Jake LaMotta and his wife, Vicky.
Okay.
Right? His ex-wife, Vicky, who he was still in love with.
Right.
So I was told by the producers, I think my friend Perry Rosemont was producing it. And he said, look, just don't get too tight with Vicky. You know, Jake's still in love with her and he's a little punchy. So, of course, Vicky takes a big liking to me and she's all over me like bark on a tree. She's hugging me. She's kissing me. And I look out the door and there's Jake in the hallway just looking at me. And I think,
wow.
This is not going to be good, man. You know, I mean, you know, even though I taught George Foreman, I don't want to go toe to toe with.
No, because you've seen Raging Bull.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Is this pre-Raging Bull? I don't even know. It's after.
And Jake liked to drink or two. I think he might have had a little too much to drink that day and
Wow.
staring me down.
Staring you down. By the way, is that TV movie that there's a question in the live stream? Is it Attica? Was that the name of that TV movie that you're only because we're going to do?
No, it was the prison movie.
Yeah, the prison.
No,
movie.
The Execution of Raymond Graham.
Okay, The Execution of Raymond Graham. So Jeremy, take a note there because we're going to do an episode on like movies and films that were seen. We're movies and television shows that were filmed in Toronto and what scenes were used and stuff. So we're going to take notes here. You're really helping us here. Okay, all right. Ethel Merman.
No business, like, yeah, what a great gal. She's a dame. She's just a broad. You know, she was one of the best. She used to call me, I'd finish doing her hair, we're going to set, and she'd stand up and she'd slam her purse into my chest. She goes, come on, sonny boy, let's go. Okay, Miss Merman, off we go. And I trot behind her. And she was just great. Ethel Merman, wow.
Ethel Merman. All right, Katie Lang.
Yeah, we had her on Stupid Dave a few times.
Stupid Dave.
Sorry, Bob's family.
No, you can
if you're
call it
listening.
Stupid Dave.
Well, you know, it was kind of silly. Yeah, she used to come in and ask if she could, I could cut men's sideburns on her.
Oh yeah. Well, there's that great Cindy Crawford photo of was it Cindy Crawford cutting her hair? Do I have that right? That was a famous photo.
I don't
I
recall
feel.
that.
I think
I'm gonna have to Google that.
I think that was a famous one here. Katie Lang. Brian Mulrooney.
Yeah.
Who just left us again. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home.
Yeah. Okay. Mulrooney, where did we meet him? First time I ever met him, 1987, Quebec City. I was out there. I got hired. We're doing a big gala evening. It was the Canada-Russia Hockey Series.
72.
And, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. 87 comes later.
That's that one's the Cops Coliseum. That's the Canada
That's right.
Cup.
Yeah. So we're out there, Quebec City, and I'm in the dressing room giving David Foster a haircut. Gretzky comes in, Mulrooney comes in, asks if I could just clean him up a little bit, very briefly. Now we cut to when he was leaving Power and they were bringing in all the other delegates to run against Kim Campbell and John
Campbell
Charest.
became PM, yeah.
Right, Charest was starting out his political career. And we're shooting. So during the day, they're bringing in all the candidates who are going to go up. They do 2 votes, you know, and the first vote, they just get rid of everybody, and they knew it was going to be Charest Campbell. And so Mulrooney was the last one in coming at the end of the day. They're measured for their eye line on camera for the evening's performance. And so he's got all his henchmen around him, and he's coming by me, and I'm leaning on the hockey boards. I got a black leather jacket on, sunglasses. I got 100 people coming through hair and makeup shortly. I want to start, so hurry up. And so he's walking by, and he sort of looks over, and he sees me, and he breaks camp, and he comes walking towards me. He's got his hand out, and he goes, I know you from somewhere. And it was one of those classic moments where, you know, you wish you would have said that at the time, but it's always too late.
Sure.
And as he's saying, I know you from somewhere, I'm shaking his hand. I go, and you are? And he just froze and like, what the fuck are you talking? You don't know. And then I let him off the hook. I said, sir, you got a very good memory. Yeah. I said, Quebec City, David Foster. He goes, that's where I know you from.
Okay. Man, David Foster. Okay.
Love David.
Did you cut the hair for the people who sang on Tears Are Not Enough?
No.
Who got that gig? I want to know. Nobody.
I think they just
your
stuck
own hair.
In those days, it all looked like they just stuck it in the Cuisinart and went out on set.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. But you mentioned Wayne Gretzky. Did you cut Wayne Gretzky's hair?
No.
Okay,
No.
because Wayne Gretzky tells a story that he would go to California and babysit for Alan Thicke.
Oh, God, Alan.
Have you heard this story?
Yes.
Like Robin Thicke, I guess. I guess that's who
Yep.
is being babysat
Yep.
by Wayne Gretzky.
Yep.
Tell me about your relationship with Alan
I
Thicke.
knew Alan when he first came to Toronto, and this is at Caruso's.
Okay.
Going back into the 60s, Alan had come from Kirkland Lake, Elliott Lake. His very first job in the entertainment business was, and Alan used to look like, remember My Three Sons, the TV show with Fred McMurray? They
I
used to
know
have
of
a
it.
kid named Ernie, one of
Okay, yeah.
their sons, and he had the little bangs and the little bottle glasses. That was Alan.
Wow.
He looked like Ernie from that TV show. And his first job was to sit on the back of the bus and play folk songs for the Miss Canada pageant contestants,
Wow.
these girls. And he had an old wooden guitar that only had 5 strings. 6th string was broken. He didn't have the money to buy a new one. And we became friends for years, Alan and I. You know, lots of fun stories with Alan. You know, when we used to make him crazy when we used to do the Vinton show. He was the line producer, and Chris Beard and Alan Bly would be back in L.A. They would phone the wardrobe room outside Studio 6 in the morning and get me on the phone and say, look, here's what we need done today, okay? Tell Alan. And I'd go up and tell Alan, who was producing the show, okay, here's what you got to do. He goes, you're the freaking hair guy. He goes, why are they calling you? Yeah, we used to have some fun times.
Now, this is the only celebrity I think that we've talked about that other than John Biner, but we didn't actually meet in person, John Biner, because we did that one via Zoom. But I actually spent hours with Alan Thicke when he was in town filming a commercial at a place where I was involved in doing some production work and stuff. So I got to spend some time with Alan Thicke, and he was very, very proud of his son, Robin, who was just breaking at the time. And he seemed like a genuinely good guy. And then you're like, oh, yeah, he's Canadian. So.
Right. Well, what about his brother, Todd?
Okay, well, tell me about Todd.
Todd, who started out, filling pop coolers on some of the shows with us. He started America's Funniest Videos. That's his show.
I did not know that.
Todd Thicke.
That's a fun
There you go.
fact,
Yeah.
I'll say, for Todd Thicke.
Todd's a great guy. Love him. He doesn't look anything like Alan.
Okay, well, Alan, handsome man, opened the Dome. I remember when they opened Sky Dome. It was Andrea Martin and Alan Thicke who were kind of hosting that thing. there.
When Alan was here doing Chicago, he phones me up and he says, hey, Chowen, I need a haircut. I go down to the Royal Alex Theater, right, rehearsals. Give him a haircut. He goes, hey, you and your family want to come see the show? Well, my girls have seen it in New York and everything, my daughter and her mom, Julie. So I said, yeah, they might want to come. So he goes, okay, I'll arrange for some tickets. Next day, the theater phones me. Mr. Thicke asked me if I can call you, Mr. Chowen. You wanted 3 tickets for the show? I go, yeah, thinking, of course, that they're comped. He goes, well, I'm going to need your visa number.
Wow.
I said, I beg your pardon? He goes, yeah. He goes, you got to pay for them. I said, is Alan in the building? He goes, I believe so. I said, look, go give him a message.
Yeah.
Tell him to go fuck himself and thanks for everything. But
Well,
no.
you can swear on the show, Gary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fuck, why didn't you tell me that, man? No, I wouldn't. I'm too polite in case my clients are listening.
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to swear soon with a different story, but
Okay.
that reminds me, and I'm not going to name names here, but I wanted to experience Toronto Argonauts football at BMO Field because they had just moved from the Dome. And I had a conversation with an FOTM on the inside, and I thought this would be good PR for a struggling team, like a team that nobody talks about, the Argos, because all the oxygen is taken by the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Toronto Raptors. Even TFC gets more oxygen than the Argos. And I had this idea and I remember him saying, okay, well, we'll hook you up with tickets. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'll write about it. It'll be a podcast, whatever. And I got a call back from the sales department. Like I was a lead for sales. And then I realized, no, that's not what I was envisioning. Anyway, that's what it was like when you were asked for your credit card number for the comped tickets.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's Alan in Chicago. I'm not paying for this.
Right. Come on. You're Gary fucking Chowen. Okay.
GC.
GC.
Okay.
Shelley Winters.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
I'm jogging your memory today.
Yeah, Shelley. Wow, what a force to be reckoned with. I think she came into the studio one day at CFI Care and early morning. I can't remember which show. And she might have been there shooting. What was the movie with The Poseidon Adventure.
Right.
Remember that? They shot that at
It's a bit
CFTO.
before my time. But,
Yeah, but well, and she came into the dressing room and asked anybody if they had any certain type of narcotic that you snorted.
Wow. Okay, shout out to Peter Gross and John Gallagher. Oh, my good friends. You ever cut John Gallagher's hair?
No.
I need to know how much of that is real.
No, I don't want to know from. He was never one of my favorite on-air personalities. I don't know him.
Not your cup of tea?
I don't want to know him. I've heard the stories.
Well, remember, it's all consensual adult sex. If he can get that number up to 600, 700, that's all fair game.
God bless them.
God bless him. Okay, God bless John Gallagher. Peter Gross wishes, he could be in that.
Grow an inch or two.
That's an FOTM Hall of Famer,
Yep.
Peter Gross. You be careful there. You're on sacred ground.
Yeah.
Sacred ground. Everybody, by the way, FOTM cast records this afternoon. So at live.torontomike.com at 5:30 p.m. as we record today on Thursday, July 11th, 2024. Jose Feliciano.
Jose, my man.
Feliz Navidad.
Beyond a talented man. Big fan of Jose. I've known him since the old days of Yorkville when he used to hang around. Spent many times at his house in Los Angeles. He now lives in Connecticut, where at one point his neighbor was Martha Stewart.
Wow.
He goes, I'm the only fucking Puerto Rican within 300 miles of New York. He goes, it's weird. But he lives in a fabulous old 17th century home, still on tour. There's been times I've sat at Jose's house at 4 or 5 in the morning. We may have been a little high. And
I'm closing with that story. Don't worry.
He pulls out a 12-string Spanish classical guitar, puts one hand in his pocket, and at the other hand, he'll play Malagueña. I go, how do you do that, man? But yeah, really good man.
Talented son
Love
of a
his
bitch.
wife, Susan. And now his kids have all grown up, and they're in his band when he goes on tour.
I watch a lot of Simpsons, and it's on Disney Plus, and they do these, like, now that Disney owns them, they have these kind of cheesy little mini episode promo videos that they put on, and there was one with him singing, like him.
Oh, really?
He was like featured in this Simpsons vignette. So there you go.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, Feliz Navidad. So you dropped an F-bomb, so I'm just going to ask you for the story because I think you could dine on this one for the rest of your life. But Milton Berle told you to go fuck yourself.
He did. Yes,
go
he
fuck
did.
yourself, Gary Chowen.
Yeah, well, you too, Uncle Milty.
What's he measuring with the Ridley Funeral Home measuring tape, Uncle Milty? He needs another one.
I guess they'd need a coffin taller if he ever got a Woody in there. We had him on some show. I get back to the Vinton show. Geez, we had a lot of people on Bobby's show. And we broke for lunch. I'm walking through the studio, and Video Central had on the monitors in the studio. It was the Major League Baseball playoff games, and the Dodgers were playing. So I stopped. I'm watching. Burl comes walking through. So I got this cigar. I'm the only one in the studio. And he goes, what's the score, kid? I go, I'm sorry, Mr. Burl. I don't know. I just got here. He goes, go fuck yourself, and walked away. I said, well, thank you.
Wow. Uncle Milty.
Yeah, what a piece of work. And I'll tell you who else I didn't like.
Tell me.
Steve Allen.
Original host? Is he the original host of The Tonight Show?
Yes, he was.
Okay, before Jack Parr,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Beyond rude to me. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I've gotten along with all these people I've worked with and became friends with a lot of them.
Sure. But
Steve
some
Allen.
are assholes.
And I know I have friends who, like my friend Biner likes them a lot. They were good friends, but I'm sorry, John. I didn't have a good experience with Steve Allen. Yeah,
Well, you know what? You would treat a John Biner differently than you would treat the hairstylist, right?
Yeah, of
and you get
course.
a better gauge of what kind of human you're talking about by how they treat the hairstylist. I always look at how people treat, like if you're in a restaurant, how does this person treat the waiter or the waitress or whatever?
With respect, I hope.
I would tell you this. I'm probably far more respectful when I have a Gary Chowen on than when I have a Milton Berle on.
Thank you.
Which requires a seance. It's a whole procedure, a medium.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll tell you a great quick story we can do.
Dude, because I have two musical things I want to hit, but please tell me.
Is it the ELO?
ELO's next.
Okay, let's do ELO.
Okay.
That was.
I was gonna have ELO because it's gonna lead. I'm dying to know about this.
You got an
this
agenda.
Beatles. I have a
you're
method
driving
to
the
my
bus,
madness,
man.
Gary. It's episode.
I'm just a passenger here.
1519. Better late than never for Gary Chowen. Tell me about ELO.
ELO. I get a phone call. A gentleman named Barry Rothman, an attorney in L.A. I know, asking me if I could sign on as president of a company that was going to be established for the Canadian tour of Electric Light Orchestra. Meatloaf was the opening act, okay? Then.
Sure.
And this is when ELO had the spaceship, it opened up, the overture, and the smoke, and out they come, and blah, blah, blah. So I said, sure. So I signed all the papers, the lawyers. And it was great then because I could get to any concert I wanted to see. I just phoned up the promoter, Gary Chowen, president of ELO. How many passes backstage do you need, Mr. Chowen? How many tickets? Okay, it was fun.
Amazing.
So what happens is we had a little problems with the tax department after the Canadian tour.
Right.
So I have to go down, and I'm there, and I asked if I can use a phone. I phoned Barry, tell him what's going on. I said, somebody hasn't paid all the withholding tax. The reason they needed me was when a foreign act came into Canada, there's a 15% withholding tax taken off the top. If you have a Canadian who's president of a corporation set up, it's only 7%.
Wow.
So when ELO toured in their heyday, that's a lot of money saved.
Right.
That's why I ended up doing this as a favor.
Wow.
They threw me a bone, gave me a few bucks then. So anyway, we got it all straightened out. And as it turns out that, I had to go, there's like over $300,000 owing in back taxes for this, for ELO. And it turns out the promoter, who I will not mention his name, was taking all the withholding tax, putting it in his own personal bank account, collecting the interest on the money. Nice, man. Pillar of the community, I may add. Out of Quebec. That's as much as I'll say.
Okay.
And anyway, we got it all straightened out. So I phoned Barry up. I said, look, I don't want anything to do with the music business anymore, okay? I said, I want out. He goes, well, it's not that easy. I go, I don't understand. He goes, well, you're going to have to go to New York and meet Mr. Arden. Who? Don Arden. Google him. Al Capone of the music business.
Wow.
Sharon Osbourne's father. He used to own blacks. In the old days, you go to Vegas and you would look in the bottom right of the marquee. Brought to you by Don Arden Productions. Don owned everybody. There's a great story.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
You can find out stories
Little
of
Richard.
him taking Robert Stigwood from the Beatles, right? Who tried to get faces from Don in the old days.
Right.
And Don dangling him outside the 7th floor of his office building by his ankles, threatening him. Anyway, that was my boss.
Air Supply. I'm just catching up on Don Arden. Everybody should do this.
Yeah.
Read about Don Arden. Okay.
So
Fake name, by the way. He was born Harry Levy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. He's sort of, I think they took the movie that Bob Hoskins was in, The Long Good Friday, after him, like Don.
The English Godfather.
Yep.
Wow.
Anyway, so the lawyer says, well, you're going to have to go to New York and meet Don and explain to him why you don't want anything to do. Okay, off I go to New York. They put me up at a hotel, great hotel up on Park Avenue. Day comes, I go over to the Waldorf Astoria Towers, ring the doorbell, and it's very, very large gentleman opens the door. This magnificent English suit on. And escorts me in, and I notice there's a lot of very large guys in this room. They bring me into the living room. I've seen hotel rooms, but this had a dining room for 30 in it. And sit me down on this nice white couch, and I'm waiting for Mr. Arden, not knowing who he is. I had a figure in mind that I wanted to ask for as compensation for all the troubles that you guys have put me through.
Right.
So before I see Don come around the corner, I see a cigarette holder, followed by this munchkin, bald-headed guy, squared like a piece of granite, and he's got on this magnificent floor-length Chinese robe in this long fucking cigarette holder. Wow. I go, are you casting for a movie, man? And he sits down on the couch opposite to me. He has no idea who I am.
Right.
He just knows he has a meeting with me. And in his wonderful Cockney accent, asks me who I am, and I explain everything. Your lawyer got me involved. I signed papers as a favor, blah, blah, blah. And he says, what do you want? And I was so afraid of this man by then. I blurted out half the amount of money I wanted.
Oh, no.
And he got up and nodded and walked out of the room. That was my end of the music business.
That was it for you.
That was it with ELO.
So I'm catching up here. Don Arden, completely a fascinating character. And it sounds scary as shit. But in 1979, one of Don Arden's great successes was Black Sabbath.
Yes.
And they fired Ozzy.
That's right.
And his daughter, Sharon, entered a relationship with Ozzy Osbourne.
He sent her to collect money that he owned. And Sharon weighed 300 pounds then when I knew her.
Right.
And Ozzy, not being too stupid, fell in love with her and married the boss's daughter.
Yeah, and then she took over the management
Yep.
from her dad, and Don Arden was livid. And then apparently...
Yes, he did.
Okay, so the next time Sharon visited her dad, Don Arden, his vicious pet dogs savaged her. She was pregnant at the time and lost the child. Sharon eventually married Ozzy Osbourne and had no contact with her father for 20 years. Wow. Okay, there's a lot of stuff I got to catch up on here.
Oh, yeah.
Look at you bringing the heat. So I know how I want to close, but if you ignore a story that might I heard Ringo Starr's birthday was the other day. So if we ignore that story, because we'll close with that story, is there any other story, like on your way here, Gary, you're like, I hope I get a chance to tell this story. Is there anything you want to share? This is the moment.
Okay, so
Because I don't want any regrets.
I guess we could do the Beatles story.
All
then.
right, so
we may as well end up with that since it was Ringo's birthday. Cut 2. I'm in a recording studio late in the morning with Bonnie and Delaney. They were a big Delaney Bramlett.
So we're in the
Google
70s
this
here,
guy.
right? What era are we in? The early 70s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Delaney Bramlett.
Post Beatles.
Incredible songwriter. And him and his wife had a big act, and they did all the big music festivals.
Okay.
Friend of mine was friends with them. We ended up at a recording studio. The phone rings. It's John Lennon.
John Lennon.
Phones. They were good friends. He was friends with Delaney.
Okay. And you answered this phone?
No.
Okay.
I'm in the studio. Okay. They came and got Delaney and said, hey, John's on the phone. Turns out he's in town. He phoned the house. They said he's in at United Recording, very famous recording studio in Hollywood where we were.
Okay.
And he says, hey, we're just up the street from you, man. Why don't you come up?
Yeah.
Delaney comes in, says, hey, okay, let's go. Up we went, walked up the street, a couple blocks up to Sunset, wherever they were recording the studio. Walk in, and there's the Beatles, minus Paul McCartney, because he was still in London in drug charges, marijuana. They wouldn't let him out of the country then, or into Canada.
So you walk in, John Lennon, who you knew was going to be there, but George Harrison and Ringo Starr are also there.
Of course,
this is after the Beatles break up. So the whole idea that you could have, if it wasn't for some stupid antiquated law, like you might have had all four Beatles there.
Yeah, I wish we had iPhones in those days. Imagine that, sitting there, getting in that picture.
But
anyway,
then, go on.
Somebody started rolling up the joints, and
Sure.
George Harrison was sitting next to me, and I passed him a joint and tried to talk to him. He didn't want to know from me. I didn't care. I was in the room with them. Good enough for me. A great memory, sitting there with the Beatles getting high.
All right, there's a chap. He actually lives in this neighborhood now, but his name is Jerry Levitan. And when Jerry was 14 years old, he found out John Lennon was in town staying at the King Eddie. Right. And
I know this guy's name.
Okay, Jerry Levitan managed to get an interview with John Lennon. Yeah. And this story is unbelievable. He came over, told it in great detail. And then he eventually used that audio for a short animated film that won an Oscar.
Wow.
It's quite the story, but now I've got the Jerry Levitan story about him interviewing John Lennon when he was 14 years old. Did you have a conversation with John?
Briefly. It was, hello, how are you? This is Gary.
And all right. What about Ringo? Like, who of those three seemed the most...
I was a kid. I was like, 17, 18. They didn't want to know. I wasn't a musician. I was just like, hanging on with these guys.
But forevermore, you could say, I smoked weed with John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr.
I can't say that. Maybe I should get a T-shirt.
Well, yeah. You need a T-shirt. You need a tattoo.
Oh, man. This virgin body?
So you have no ink on you?
No. Inkless.
I'm inkless as well, and I think that's now the new rebel act. Because I'm on the waterfront trail every day, and I see so much ink. And I know there's been a lot of ink because from the 90s there was a lot of ink, and excluding people from the Army or the Navy or whatever, it all kind of blew up. I remember in the early 90s, a lot of ink, but nothing like today. It's so rare. I see a pair of legs on the waterfront trail with no ink on them.
It's like, whoa.
So you have no ink. You're never going to get a tattoo.
Virgin ink.
I'm
not. No,
not even one that says
piercing.
Nor a piercing. Okay,
no,
because that's a little less.
No,
I would do that. I have done that, but you could get a tattoo that says "I smoked weed with John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr."
Not
Gary,
gonna happen.
Can anybody listening get their hair cut by Gary Chowen?
Anybody can. Just phone. Go to GaryChowen.com, my website, and phone numbers are there. And I'd love to have you in. My rates are so fair. people keep saying, why don't you raise your prices? Because I don't have an ego that big, actually.
I would get my hair cut, but I mean, Andy's got great stories. Okay,
I'll come here and do your hair.
Would you? I don't
do
know.
it on air.
Andy might cut you. No.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Well, half of the head goes to you. Half of the head goes to
okay.
To Andy.
And what about your friend at Ridley? He must have to get some too one day.
Brad, if you're listening, Gary Chowen should cut your hair. But I mean, will you even cut someone's hair if they say salon instead of salon?
I don't give a shit. I really don't care. You come in, you can bring your dog.
132
I don't care. You just got
Cumberland
hair,
Street.
I'll do it. 132 Salon Raffaello, GaryChowen.com.
How did Yorkville lose its way? I want to go back to this. I had Jane Harbury over, and she's talking about working at the Riverboat Cafe and the scene. And this is so foreign to somebody my age who only knows Yorkville as the land of like designer labels and la-di-da, hotty-toddy bullshit.
Right.
Bring back the spirit of the 60s Yorkville.
Well, you know, quickly, when you say the Riverboat, we had a salon right above the Riverboat, like later on in life, before they tore Yorkville down. And there was always a great rumor about the wall that's behind the wall that was signed by everybody who ever worked in the Riverboat.
Wow.
So then Gord Martineau, who you've had on the show.
Absolutely.
Gord and I used to share a house together years ago.
Okay. I feel like we didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I phoned Gordy up. I said, hey, why don't we do a story? You know, because we're vacating the building because they're tearing it down to build the Hazelton Hotel.
Right.
Like, this is Geraldo Rivera's shit.
Yeah.
We're going to take the wall down.
Broke into the vault of
And
Capone.
let's see if there's anything. There wasn't. It was a big myth. Big myth. Very disappointing.
Love it, though.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,519th show. You can follow me all over the place at Toronto Mike, Twitter, Blue Sky, you name it. But go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs and to see, to find past episodes and past guests and all that jazz. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery, who you got your beer.
Got my beer.
Gary. Palma Pasta, your lasagna's in my freezer.
I'm covered for dinner, man. And a tape measure.
Tape measure? That's
see how
from
big
Ridley
my girth
Funeral Home.
goes.
Shout out to Uncle Milty. Recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's where you go if you have old tech, old electronics, old cables. Don't throw them in the garbage. The chemicals end up at our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. And, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. Go to the website. Find out when they play. They have evening games during the week as well. But Sunday afternoons at 2 o'clock, that's a great time to get your butt to Christie Pitts. Great baseball. Great ambiance. I can't wait to be back there in early August. Maybe I'll throw a strike when I throw that first pitch. Come by and find out. See you all later today when Cam Gordon and the VP of Sales, Tyler Campbell, drop by for the second quarter's FOTM cast. We have a lot to discuss. We'll break it all down. This episode we just recorded is actually Q3, so we won't talk about that, but we'll talk about that one in a few months. See you all then!